Well, are you ready to get in the self-storage business? Even today, even with the prices as high as they are? Well, I'm here to tell you that you can. Even in a seller's market, even in an overpriced market, if you know what you're doing, you can get in the self-storage business, or you can grow your self-storage business. Hello, my name is Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Self-Storage Quick Start Academy. And in the Quick Start Academy, we go into detail and depth about many of the aspects that we've been covering in this free series of episodes, how to analyze self-storage in today's market. Yes, in today's market, existing self-storage facilities are priced very high. They're overpriced, you might say. But yet, if you know what you're doing, if you know how to spot the value-added opportunities that are out there, and you know how to analyze them in a ways that you can tell what they're going to be worth and what your cash flows are going to be, you will still be able to get in and to grow, and you don't have to wait for the market to turn, and you don't have to just build from ground up like so many people are doing. Nothing wrong with building. We're building some too, but that's not the only way to do it. So let's continue. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, stop, go back, watch the last 4 episodes in this series so that what we're talking about today will be in context. Because what we've done is we've learned how to generate the income and the total cost in the project for literally any type of self-storage project that you could get in today. We've learned how to determine the income off existing self-storage facilities that you're going to expand, conversions where you buy an existing building and convert it to self-storage, and raw land where we build and develop self-storage from ground up. We've learned how to determine what the rents we're going to charge are. We've learned how to determine when and how much that income and how fast that income can come in our performance. And we've studied about how to design a construction budget. Now, even though you may not be totally facile in construction at this moment, you know where to go to get the resources, and I've shared some of the construction ideas and budget processes that we use. So you now know how much the cost into the project, and you know about how to generate the income and when that income is going to be coming in when you're bringing new units online. So today, let's talk about some of the expenses. To complete the analysis, we need to look at starting with the operating expenses. So let's define operating expenses. Operating expenses are expenses that are involved in the day-to-day running of the facility. The cost of the personnel, the cost of the utilities, the insurance to insure the project, the property taxes that you're going to pay on the project, the website, the advertising, the marketing, the maintenance. Those are all the operating expenses. What's not included in operating expenses are 1, capital expenses. Capital expenses are generally expenses that one makes in a project that will have a long-term, long-lasting effect. Like replacing a roof, that is a capital expense. Replacing an HVAC unit, that is a capital expense. If you fix the HVAC, that's an operating expense. If you replace the HVAC, that's a capital expense. If you blacktop the surface, that is an operating expense. If you repave the surface, that's a capital expense. And so you've got operating expenses, capital expenses, and then the last thing, which we won't talk much about today, is loan payments or debt service. But to determine the net operating income of a facility, or any investment commercial real estate project for that matter, you take the income, which we now know how to generate, subtracting the operating expenses, which we'll talk about in a second, and that leaves you the net operating income. That net operating income is very important, as you'll see in a minute, because that is what determines the value of your self-storage facility. So let's look at operating expenses. If you're watching this video anywhere other than Creating Wealth through Self-Storage.com, I invite you to go there. Go to episode 107, and there will be a transcript of this video, and in its transcript, when you get to this point, you can click, and what you can download are the line items that we use in generating analysis and what line items we use in our operating expenses. It could be a starting place for you. I would invite you to avoid the tendency to just use a percentage of the income as operating expenses. So if you look at many of the industry's almanacs and many of the industry's data, they will relate to operating expenses as a percentage of income. In other words, if it's generating $100,000 in income, operating expenses are 40% or $40,000. So that would mean that the net operating income is $60,000. You can do that, but I invite you not to. What I really highly recommend, and I'm coaching you to do, is to think through how you're going to run that facility. That's where the business strategy is so important. Think through how you're going to run that facility. Are you going to have full-time people, part-time people? What are you going to pay them? How many hours a week are they going to work? Who's going to handle the maintenance? Is there going to be a maintenance person coming in? Are you going to pay them bonuses, health, and how are you going to run it? Think through all of those aspects and put numbers in there. Now again, these are approximate numbers, and if you're not sure what to put in there, the same almanacs and data that you can get that talk about operating expenses as a percentage of income also have averages in the country as a whole and certain segments of the country, and even in the type of self-storage project there are. There's a lot of data out there, so even if you don't know what to pay somebody in the industry, you can find out. So fill in your operating expenses. You now know how to generate your income. Then you determine what your operating expenses most likely are going to be in year one, and then subtract income from expenses. That is your net operating income. Now, that is a very critical number, as you'll see. All value is determined by the net operating income. You could buy that facility all cash, and you're still going to have that same net operating income, or you could get 100% leverage and put no cash in the deal. That would still be your net operating income. Now, we're starting to get into the world of what is so fantastic about self-storage as compared to anything else. One of the things I really love about self-storage is that you can raise the rents whenever you want. People do not have long-term leases with you. You can raise the rents once a year, 5 times a year, whatever you choose. Yes, there's market conditions. You don't want to get too much above the market, but I will tell you that since 2009, we have been averaging a 6% a year rental increase. Now, that doesn't mean that every year it's going up 6%, but between 2009 and 2016, our portfolio has averaged 6%. Now, I don't anticipate that going on forever, and that's not the number I use in our performance, but I think this is one of the best kept secrets about self-storage. Now, I know many owners are hesitant to raise the incomes. Don't be. And you'll see why in a second. In my performas, I put in 3%. Now, that doesn't mean even in future years we're going to be raising it 3% each and every year. What that says is that we're going to average a 3% per year increase in the income. Very conservative. So in other words, if you have a $100,000 gross potential income, and you remember what that is, in year one, then in year two, without doing anything to the facility, that same facility's gross potential income is now $103,000. Then in year 103, you take 3% of that 103, that means your gross potential income is $106,090. That's how the gross potential income. So as you look into the future years of this facility, and you might be in your analysis bringing new units on, or you might be building from ground up, but each and every year, the rental rate of your unit mix will be going up 3% a year. But income isn't the only thing to go up. What else goes up? Yes, operating expenses. By how much? Well, inflation over the last decade's been averaging around 2.5%. So in our pro formas, when I'm looking at future income streams, I put in a 3% a year income increase, and I put in a 2.5% a year price increase. Now, if you've been following the math, what you see is that income 3%, expenses 2.5%. For us, that 0.5% gap between income increase and operating expense increase is huge. So here is an actual pro forma on a property that we own. Now, what I want you to notice before we look at it is, I'm not adding more units. I'm not adding new cash flows coming in. I have the income going up 3% a year and the operating expenses going up 2.5% a year. There is a 0.5% increase per year. And I want you to see the compounding effect of what that 0.5% does to this cash flow over a 10-year period. Let's take a look. Okay, well, here is a 10-year cash flow from a project we did. And if you look at the top line, that is a 3% increase on the gross potential income year after year. If you look at the operating expense, that's going up 2.5%. Now, what I want you to look at is the net operating income. Look how much that goes up in 10 years with nothing but a 0.5% increase between income and operating expenses. Let's take a look though and see how that translates into value. Now, we used an 8 cap to determine future value, but I really want you to look at that reversion sale price line. With the 0.5% difference between income and operating expenses over a 10-year period, that 0.5% gap compounding creates over $2 million worth of value. That's pretty incredible. That's very incredible. That is the magic of compounding. That's one of the reasons self-storage is such a great investment over any other type you can go in. But now let's talk about value. How you determine the value of a facility is you divide that net operating income by a capitalization rate. Now, what in the world's a capitalization rate? Well, if you don't know what a cap rate is, again, at episode 107 at Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, click there. There's an episode I did on defining what a cap rate is. Learn what a cap rate is. It's critical if you're going to be in this business. That is literally the return or the capitalization rate that a ready, willing, and able buyer will pay for that net operating income cash flow. So right now, for example, to buy self-storage, if you're looking at self-storage, one of the problems you think you're having is that the self-storage facilities are priced at very low cap rates. In other words, on that $100,000, someone will take only a 6% or a 6.5% return or cap rate on that net operating income, whereas you might need a 12% or 10%. So in other words, but right now we cannot buy self-storage facilities at an 8 cap or a 10 cap. We're having to buy them at 7 and 6 caps or even lower. But the value of any real estate asset, and particularly your self-storage facility, is what will a ready, willing, and able buyer pay in any given year for that net operating income cash flow. They're not buying your units. They're not buying how pretty your doors are. They're buying your cash flow. And you need to be able to know what the value of that asset is going to be in year 3, year 2, year 5, and year 10. And how you do it is you apply a capitalization rate, a cap rate, against what you are projecting the net operating income to be in that year. So let's go back and take a look at the project that we just looked at. In year 1, the net operating income was $601,653. The actual calculation is you take that number, that 601,653, divide it by 0.08. I use an 8 cap to estimate what the future value is going to be. I don't know what it's going to be, but a lot of appraisers have suggested that I use an 8 cap for future values now, so that's what I use. So if you take that net operating income in year 1, divide it by 0.08 or an 8 cap, that puts a value of $7,520,660. That is the current value of that asset at an 8 cap today. But look into the future. Look at year 10. So what was the net operating income projected to be in year 10? It was $834,606. $834,606. It had gone up that much simply by having that 0.5% increase between income and operating expenses each and every year. Take that net operating income, divide it by 0.8, and you have a value of $10,432,569. That's almost $3 million worth of value created by doing nothing more than making sure that the income is going up at least 3% a year, and that the operating expenses are going up at least 0.5% less than the income. And you've created $3 million in wealth in that one project. Incredible. We run around acting like there's a scarcity of opportunity out there today. There's no scarcity of opportunity. If scarcity exists, it's scarcity in our thinking. We've got to learn how to create additional value and let that additional value compound, and you can create the wealth that you're seeking by getting in this industry. But you've got to be able to trust your numbers. So in our next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple things. One is we're going to talk about the other few items below the net operating income line, the capital expenses and the debt service. And we're going to do a case study on an expansion project, on a real expansion project, where you can see how the additional value created, and then letting that additional value compound at only this 0.5%, the value that additional value will create. And then I think you'll feel confident in your ability to go out in today's market and get in or grow your self-storage business. Gotta trust your numbers, gotta know what you're doing, but the opportunities are everywhere. So I'm doing this in a hotel room at the Inside Self Storage Convention. The convention's getting ready to start, and I will, in one of the future episodes, you'll be seeing some of the sights and sounds of being in this convention. So if you are not a member of the Inside Self Storage, I invite you to explore it and join. Much of the resources I'm talking about come from data that Inside Self Storage and the SSA, the Self Storage Association, provides. I'm a big believer in being members of these organizations. They give a lot to the members of our industry, and that is you. So I hope to meet you here. If you see me, come up and say hello, and I look forward to being with you next week. And the booth number 527, I'm going to be demonstrating version 2, the new upgraded version of the Storage World Analyzer, and that is the financial analysis tool that we use to do all these projections that I'm talking to you about. Now, you don't have to have it, but I'm telling you, if you're not like really good with numbers and not great with Excel spreadsheets, this program makes all the difference in the world, and I think you'll be very impressed if you stop by the booth or go to storageworldanalyzer.com or creatingwealththroughselfstorage.com to find out more about it. I'm making it as affordable as I can because I'm here to help the small investor get in this fantastic business and do well. I know what a difference it can make in your life. I know the difference it's made in my life, and I'm here to share with you and shorten your learning curve. Thank you very much. My name is Mark Helm. I'll see you later.